with the abutter against the Foundry, because we've said it all along, we are not against the Foundry. We have problems with certain programming that are detrimental and harmful to us. So I just want to clarify that. It's not a popularity contest. It's not anti-this, anti-that, and we made it clear. We've always said that, and somehow the narrative is we hate the Foundry and we want them gone. So since we're talking about removing conditions, I'd like to just talk about conditions first. So we talk about the character of the neighborhood. Isn't it clear that also the character of the neighborhood was also established by my family when we moved here 45 years ago and built a business and our home base here? And by the way, the Foundry was a parking lot. Not to take away from what Amy has done, but that is the character that the neighborhood that we built. And why does that get discounted? It was a parking lot, but you wouldn't know because you weren't here. So based on your conditions, that it was, music everywhere, that's a false narrative. It was clothesline puppet, not amplified. You also didn't really find out that the town made the West Bridge Inn, which was located on Main Street at the old Card Lake Inn, purchased baffling to protect neighbors from the bar activity there. But that wasn't part of, December 2022's findings from you. So there was no amplified music with deep bass and drums. I'm also curious to know why Wiseacre is being put to the task to mitigate nuisance from their neighbors at Wiseacre's expense.
Please stick to issues that are
Sure.
specific and germane to the Foundry. We're not discussing any other
So
special
here,
permits. in
we're
this
gonna
town.
talk about technical support and how the board came up with 60 dBA and 65 dBc. This was the level set by this board on December 2022. I would like to understand how these levels were set when you have no technical analysis to understand how these levels impact my home, inside my business. So where did these numbers come from? Because that's the crux of why we are here. We have data from all of 2023 from the Foundry's calibrated machine. We have events that did not bother us, and we have non-performance data samplings, and from events that did bother us. If it's wind, traffic, highway, airplanes, why does the data not spike like it does for the performances that harm us? We've done the analysis. We know how to use Excel, we know how to analyze, and it doesn't take days, it takes literally minutes. Droning amplified bass and drums for a prolonged period of time is harmful. We all know that it's stressful enough these days. What we do not know is what each of us are dealing with and going through. But we all agree that everyone's home is their sanctuary. Why is my home any different? So the conditions that they want to remove. The microphone placement was placed it was supposed to be placed 16 feet per this board. It was placed 33 feet away from where you guys wanted it placed. Did you make that decision? No, it wasn't complied with. And it's placed 10 feet in the air. When you mitigate and you measure for harm, it's ear level. Talk to everyone that does this, musicians, noise experts, they will say standard measuring ear level. So what are you measuring at 10 feet in the air? You're gonna measure the wind. So for the entire 2023 event, for the events that we had issues with amplified noise in our home, these measurements were not accurate to begin with. So technically, the ZBA could not find our issue because technically the data was,
5 minutes, I'll give you 2 more minutes, please.
okay,
Finish up in 2 minutes, please.
enforcement is an issue. The ZBA, the enforcement guy, doesn't know how to analyze data, doesn't know how to use Excel, didn't even use the right equipment to list it. And by the way, the microphone only got moved into the right location in September. And in nearly an entire season, and in half a year, more than half a year. Noise is not absolute. It travels, so why not wind, why traffic? Why don't these levels travel in our home? Why do I have analysis from 30 data points, calibrated data from the Foundry? And by the way, I will say, whenever we have a question about the data, Amy has always provided it. It is not her that is holding up my ability to understand how this data is hurting us. I know from what I feel, but then when I look at the data, but it's not Amy that is withholding it. I want to make that clear. We are not challenging Amy's integrity. It's just certain programming hurts us. So here's the data. By the way, and you can put me in jail, but Herb Singleton's cross analysis, this is what he said. Please note that it is entirely possible that music and other sounds emitted from the Foundry during these specific events are audible inside the Nguyen properties. Low frequency sounds from these events and other events are annoying to neighbors. That other events held at the Foundry have exceeded special permit limits, but he was only asked to address the potential violations of April and May, which, by the way, the period in which he was asked to analyze was 15 minutes. These events last from 7:30 until 9 o'clock. So what are you really analyzing in 15 minutes when we hear it for the entire duration?
Please finish up.
Okay. So again, let's talk. Eric Chevalonis suggested looking at the data. We looked at all data points from the Foundry. We looked at non-events. We analyzed pre-event, just to not muddle the events that we had problems with, 4 of them. We analyzed the ambient pre-event. The events that were, the majority of the other events we didn't have a problem with, but we had that data. Average ambient from 30 data sets is 45.50. We didn't hire a noise expert, but this is noise. This is data coming from her calibrated machine, not mine. And sea level is 55.8. So these are ambient levels, levels where no performance has hurt us. And with only 4, that hurts us. So instead of turning it into a witch hunt and that we're nasty and we need to change and this and that, why don't we try to mitigate the type of performances that hurt us? And by the way, the data that you guys have from June 22nd, it's a non-performance data set. There were no performances during that time. That wasn't communicated, so the audience should know that. It was? Oh, sorry. I have a lot on my mind. And also,
I'd like you to finish up. We've given her extra time from the rules.
I understand.
Please,
So yeah, and then Bill said something about 4 events where sound came from the Foundry. So he just validated that sound came from the Foundry. And also, just one last thing, but again, you can put me in jail. But
you don't have the authority to do that.
Okay, well that's good, because since I'm so hated anyway. Amy talked about soundproofing.
What are we listening to?
This is one of the performances that we complained about in my restaurant. So it's,
How is we supposed to know?
Time is up. I'm giving you 10 minutes or so, so. Other abutters